Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Rainbow Push Paycheck Protection Program seminar for independent contractors. My name is Helen Crawley Austin. I am proud to be working with Reverend Jesse Jackson, who is the founder of Rainbow Push Coalition. Many of you know him as a civil rights activist, but he's also very, very involved in economic justice. And in an effort to make sure that people within our community understand how to get funded through this COVID-19 SBA funding interval, we decided to put these workshops together so that you can understand what you need to do to get the money and what you need to do to make sure it's forgiven. And so there are some very specific details that you have to know. Otherwise, you will be having a loan converted in July. So anyway, grab a piece of paper, pencil, and your tax return. As we walk through this, I'm going to try to give you specific examples on what you need to do in order to access the dollars and make sure that they're forgivable. So what we're going to cover is the protection program, look at some similarities and some differences, the documents you got to prepare, how to collect them, how to calculate your total loan amount, and how to make sure it is forgiven. All right. And we do also have some additional resources. Let me also just note this. I'm going to note it at the end, but I want you to put it up in your notes. We have a website that will guide you, give you information, access to some SBA banks. If you're in the Chicagoland area, we have a specific bank that we're working with that Rainbow Push has always worked with. But the website is rpccovid19.com. rpccovid19.com. All right, so we have a specific session just for independent contractors. We also have one for churches and nonprofits, and we have one for small businesses with employees. So the independent contractor one is for people with no employees. If you go to the website, we have a series of webinars, and you can do the drop-down menu and get information about each seminar so that you can sit on them. We will have seminars today and tomorrow. We predict the money will be gone in 48 hours, okay? So this session is, we realize that there are a number of independent contractors in our community, hairdressers, barbershops, church musicians, even some church secretaries that are 1099. And if you are a 1099 employee, then you are an independent contractor, and this session is to provide you guidance on how to apply for the PPP yourself. So I'm only going to focus on independent contractors without employees who are not in a partnership, okay? So if you are a small business and you have employees, then you need to click the session for employees, for small businesses with employees. So let me give you an overview of the Paycheck Protection Program. It is a loan administered by the Small Business Administration, and it's designed to provide just short-term stability for small businesses. So it's really over an 8-week period of time. And most of the time, independent contractors are not included in programs like this or unemployment. But because of this pandemic and because of COVID-19, independent contractors have now been included. All right. So the goal of the whole program is to keep employees of businesses and nonprofits, and even those who are self-employed, to minimize or reduce the burden of the unemployment rolls across all the states. Now, I am going to talk about unemployment, and sometimes it might be better for you to go get unemployment than it is for you to get the PPP. So we'll talk about that. Let's look at the similarities and differences between the organizations. If you are a small business or a nonprofit, there are certain guidelines and rules that you must adhere to. And I'm going to go over those and show you the difference between those and independent contractors. And I explain it because it needs to make sense so you don't make a mistake when you're doing it. So first of all, the maximum loan amount for organizations, small businesses, nonprofits, churches, is 2.5 times the average monthly payroll. Very simple. For independent contractors, it's 2.5 times the average monthly net profit. Big difference. You can't just write down 2.5 times the amount you get at the end of every month or at the end of every week. You've got to do some calculations. The timeline for the calculations for organizations, small businesses, it is the calendar year 2019 or the past 12 months. Okay. For independent contractors, it is only 2019. All right. So I'm going to use some terminology. So I want to just define that up front. For organizations and churches, the whole calculation is based on the payroll expenses, average monthly payroll. All right. For independent contractors, it's average monthly net profit. And we also use the term owner compensation replacement. So as an independent contractor, you are the owner. And we're talking about your compensation over the next 8 weeks. What's included in those payroll expenses? Salary, benefits, state and local taxes for organizations and small businesses. For independent contractors is what you pay yourself. Okay? That is payroll expenses. What you pay yourself, minus your net expenses. We're going to go through it, give you a complete example on how to calculate that. How much of the loan can be spent on payroll expenses? For organizations and small businesses with employees, the minimum amount of this money that you can spend on payroll is 75%. Now, you can spend 100% of it on payroll, but the minimum is 75% if you want it to be forgiven. Okay? For independent contractors, it's a maximum of 75%. So you can't spend 100% of what you get on your owner's compensation. Some of it has to be used for expenses, and we'll show you an example on how to do that. So here's the 5 key questions. How can I apply? What do I need? How much I can borrow? What can the loan be used for? And how can it be forgiven? So eligibility. You are an independent contractor if you were in operations before February 15th, your residence is in the United States, and that you file a Schedule C for 2019. It will help you if you filed if you were a contractor and you filed and you got a 1099 in 2018, you should have a Schedule C. You should go pull that if you haven't done your taxes for 2019. So as I go through this, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you've done your taxes, pull your taxes out. It'll be even easier for you. You're not eligible for the program if you're facing criminal charges, probation, if you're, at least for the last 5 years. And there's some other guidelines. Basically, if you've been in trouble, you want to make sure you read the guidelines before you apply. Okay? So always check with SBA guidelines, and you can Google just, am I eligible, or eligibility for PPP, and it will pop up. Here's the basic documentation that you need. Okay, and you're going to be requested, and this is probably the minimum. I've told people to even do some different things, but here we go. You need an invoice that you invoice to receive the money for your 1099 income, or a bank statement, some book or record to prove that you've been receiving the money. You also need to have a completed 2019 Schedule C. Now, let me just stop here. There's been a little bit of confusion on this. There's some people who say 2018 because you haven't gotten your taxes done yet. What I tell you to do is send your 2018 Schedule C and estimate your 2019 Schedule C. Because you will only have one opportunity to hand in this data. Nobody will probably have time to call you back and tell you you were missing something. So you can estimate your Schedule C, and also include your 1099 for 2019, which you should have received before January 31st of 2020. Let's look at the basics. How much can I borrow? You have to pull out your Schedule C and look at line 31. Pull it out for 2018 if you haven't done your taxes in 2019, because it'll help you estimate your Schedule C for 2019. Now, I am not saying you got to go get your taxes done for 2019 in order to apply. You just have to estimate just the Schedule C form, okay? And you're going to be looking at line 31, which says net profit or loss. That has to be a profit, okay? This whole calculation is based on net profit and not net loss. All right, so step 2, how much can you borrow now? Looked at line 31, your net profit, you found it to be $31,200. You divide that by 12 to get your monthly net profit, because there's 12 months in a year. That comes out to be $2,600. This is just an example for the Schedule C that I just showed previously. So your average monthly net profit is $2,600. You can multiply that now by 2.5 to get the maximum loan amount for the PPP program. In this case, it's $6,500. All right. So you can only get $6,500, and the goal is for that to be able to pay you for the next 8 weeks. Okay. What can the loan be used for? 8 weeks of compensation for yourself, and it's 8 weeks of your net weekly profit. You can also use it for business expenses, because remember, you can only use 75% of this money. So business expenses there's only 3 business expenses that you can deduct, and that is mortgage interest, rent, and utilities. Nothing else, not credit cards, not any other payment, just those 3 items. Long as you had these items before February 15th. So if you went and rented, signed a lease for something on March 1st, not included. If you got something, you bought a new building for your property, or you moved into a new house, those mortgage interests are not included, but the previous mortgage interest would be included. Okay. So only what you're going to claim on your Schedule C can you use this money as expenses. All right. And no other obligations will be included. So you can't, anything else is not forgivable. All right, so what can you pay yourself? Let's look at this. We're looking at 8 weeks of owner's compensation. Now, we've already figured out how much you can approve for. Now we're trying to figure out how much you can actually pay yourself. So step number 1, you find your net profit, which we found on Schedule C. We knew that it's $31,200. We divide that by 52 weeks. Now we're trying to find out how much you paid yourself from a net perspective, net profit, how much you paid yourself every single week. And there's 52 weeks in a year. So you divide that by 52 and you get $600 per week. All right. That's how much the compensation for each week, $600. You multiply that times the 8-week interval that we're talking about here, and you get $4,800. So that's the maximum amount that you can pay yourself in this 8-week period of time. So you got $6,500, but you can only pay yourself $4,800, and the other remaining dollars have to be used on expenses. So let's go over it again. Maximum loan amount, you calculate your net profit divided by the 12 months, multiply it times 2.5. That's how much money you're going to get. How much can you pay yourself? You take the net profit divided by 52 weeks, multiply it times the 8-week interval. That's the maximum amount you can pay yourself. So you can see that's 75% of the loan amount. Got it? All right. So you can only pay yourself that amount. Now I want to be real clear on the 25% remaining that you can use it for. Mortgage interest. So if you look at the form, actually put the form in here, it's line 16A of your Schedule C. You can see line 16 says interest, and then there's an A and a B. One is mortgage interest, one is other. That is what for 2019, you want to estimate that, okay? Because if you haven't done your taxes. If you have done your taxes, you just take the number out. Other property, you see I circled it, that's something you cannot claim, okay? Because that's not one of the 3 items. So let's say you rent a storage space. That's your business expense. You cannot claim that, but you can claim utilities, and that's the line where utilities is. So I just want to give you an example of a Schedule C. Now let's talk about forgiveness. This is important, as important as actually acquiring the money. So let's talk about the categories. So you want to pay yourself. When you pay yourself your owner's compensation, what can be forgiven? You got to look at your average weekly net profit, right? As long as you stay within that 75%, it is forgiven. okay? No other money can be paid to yourself. So it's authorized but not forgiven. So let's say you spend the whole $6,500 on your owner's compensation. You pay yourself the whole amount. That's fine, but you will have to pay a loan for the $2,500. It will convert into a loan at 1% interest, right? The other thing is business expenses. As long as you incurred them before February 15th, it's within the interval of the 8 weeks, and you claim it on your Schedule C, you can be forgiven. All right. What's authorized but not forgiven is any other expense. So let's say you pay your credit card with that money. You can do that. It's just not going to be forgiven. And you might say, well, how are they going to know? Well, they're going to make you come in and show it. So we're going to talk about that traceability also. Interest paid on other debts is not forgiven. However, you can use it, but it will not be forgiven. It'll be converted into a loan. So let's summarize it. For full forgiveness, 75% of the money can be spent on owner's compensation. 25% on authorized business expenses. And I say authorized because we've gone over those 3 items. If you anticipate not having enough business expenses, and some people are like, Helen, you know, my interest might be $5. My mortgage interest might be just $100. And I don't have enough expenses to cover that $2,500 that's left over. I want to pay myself that money. Well, you can, it's just not going to be forgiven. So let's figure out how to maximize what's forgiven. You can borrow a lower amount. You don't have to borrow the full amount, okay? But you might as well borrow the amount that will cover your utilities and your mortgage interest if you have it, because it's going to be forgiven. So you can keep the balance if you don't want to spend it on those type of expenses, the 3 authorized expenses. You can keep it, and it'll be a 2-year loan with 1% interest. Okay. You can also just spend the amount on authorized business expenses, and you'll be okay. I just want to be very clear about how you can do that. You can also return the unspent balance. There's no penalty for early payment, repayment. The other thing I want to advise people to do is keep the money in a single bank account. And then when you pay yourself your owner's compensation, write a check. It needs to be traceable, right? So for example, if I have bank account number 1 and it's the end of the week and I'm paying myself the $600, I will write a check to myself and put it into my household account. Okay, then you've spent it. The other thing, same thing with any other payments that you're making. You want to just write a check and put it in the other account. Or for your utilities, I would actually write a check and send it to ComEd. Write a check and send it to the water company. You see what I'm saying? So you want to make sure there's no question in the traceability of what you're doing. Try to stay away from ATMs. I'm going to I'm saying that on the next. So what you need to be forgiven. You're going to have to certify that the amount of the forgiveness you're requesting is related to forgivable expenses. You got to certify that, both your compensation and your business expenses. So you've got to prove it. If you can't, it's a loan. There's no argument, debate about it. You're just going to convert into a loan. So again, you want to make sure that you keep receipts, cancel checks, transcripts of all the accounts and what's going on. It's only 8 weeks, so it shouldn't be that difficult, but it's important that you are detailed. Stay away from ATMs. Like if you take $500 out of that account, there's no way of telling what you spent that money on. And so, you don't want to do ATM withdrawals and stuff like that. You want to do something that's traceable, because you could have spent, if you took $500 out, you could have spent $20 on gas and $40 or $50 on something, $200 on groceries. So they don't know, and you have to be able to prove it. If you get EIDL, it may impact your PPP. You just got to be honest. You can't get both. So we'll ask you if you got EIDL, and you have to say yes and how much. And they will probably deduct that from your PPP. Okay, what else is on the application? Legal business name, or the name that's on your tax return. So if you have a business, then you put the name, otherwise it's your name. DBA, doing business as, your trade name. If not, it's just your name, or your business name. Address, your EIN, your tax ID. If you don't have a tax ID, you don't have a business set up, then you use your social security number. Your phone, contact information, average monthly payroll, or your net income, and then times 2.5, number of employees, and purpose of the loan. Okay. Now let's talk about the EIDL versus the PP loan and the grant portions. So the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, that's a mouthful, is two parts. One part is a grant, one part is a loan. So you remember if you recall, on the SBA website, it called it 10,000K advance. That's the EIDL. And that is the part that is the grant. But you also have to reduce your PPP by that amount, okay? And because you want to make sure that you do this correctly so that it's forgivable. Just so you know, all of it is through the SBA and IRS. And so they work together and they have all of your information. So you want to just make sure that you're doing that correctly. Let's talk about unemployment benefits. As an independent contractor, I don't know if this is the first time ever, but it's not normal that independent contractors can claim unemployment. So you might be eligible to receive unemployment benefits. You can't receive both. All right. So during your recertification for unemployment, they will ask you the question, and you have to be clear and disclose that you are receiving PPP money. All right. Because PPP is intended to replace your income for the 8 weeks. And so unemployment is for 36 weeks. But you can't overlap the 8 weeks with the 36 weeks. So you can only get one or the other during those 8 weeks. You want to make sure you check with your state and your tax accountant if you have questions on that. So let's look at the two. Eligibility for PPP. That's your independent contractor and your work has been affected by COVID-19. All right. Unemployment benefits is you must recertify on a weekly basis that you're looking for work, and you can't receive a certain amount of money per state. Timeline for PPP, 8 weeks. Timeline for unemployment, 39 weeks, depending on what state you're in. Structure for the PPP is partially forgivable and no taxes. Unemployment is taxed on your benefits. Amount for PPP, 2.5 times monthly net profit. Unemployment varies by state, but for unemployment, the government had issued $600 per week through July 31st, extra on top of what you would approve for. So it's very, very good. So there's some cases where a person might apply for unemployment versus PPP, because as an independent contractor, you can approve to do either, but you can't do both for that 8 weeks. You can't get unemployment before the 8 weeks and unemployment after the 8 weeks, but not unemployment during the 8 weeks, okay? PPP pays out in a lump sum, so you get all the money, and the unemployment pays out weekly. Now let me go back to the EIDL real quick. EIDL, when you receive the money in your bank account, it should have EIDG for the grant. So there should be a G at the end of the transaction. And it's my understanding that they're giving money by the number of employees. So if you have 1 employee, then you get 1,000. 2 employees, you get 2,000. All right, let's see. We're wrapping it up here. What to do immediately? One, I would advise you to go to our website. If you live in Chicago, we're using Providence Bank. And so we will give you an email address to upload your documents to us. We're actually helping Providence, like just scan through, make sure everybody has the right information so that we can reduce their load a little bit. And then we're sending the packages over to them. Gather your 1099s for 2019 and your Schedule Cs. I would actually do 2018 and estimate 2019 and then apply. Go and apply. So here is our Rainbow Push email address. So if you are in the Chicagoland area, you can send your package to us and we will help get that through Providence Bank. Otherwise, you can go to our RPC COVID-19.com. Now, here's my advice to you. If you have a credit union or a local community bank that you have been affiliated with, or a credit union that someone in your family is affiliated with, you might want to go there because it's a smaller organization. They might be able to help you a lot faster than some of the bigger banks. But if you don't have a bank, feel free to go to our website. For any organization that's outside of Chicagoland area, we have a link that you can go to access some of the SBA approved bankers.